So I thought I'd share a story from a few years ago about my skin and a really tough and difficult time that was for me. And I think it could really benefit a lot of people, just sharing the lessons that I learned from going through that and how I overcame that whole situation mentally, socially, and physically. Obviously, as you can see, my skin has never looked better, and I'm very thankful for that. But I just thought that everything happens for a reason. So I think one of the reasons why I might have gone through that is so that I can help other people and maybe relate to some people who are struggling with their skin or any insecurity. The year was 2018, and I had just graduated from high school and was preparing to move away to college, which I think the experience of going away for the first time is a big deal for a lot of people. It's very emotional, and it was almost 2 hours away. So I was very excited. So 2 weeks before I was scheduled to move away, I was gradually packing my things, and I was very anxious about it to begin with. I ended up breaking my thumb, and the specifics of that don't matter other than the fact that I had to go to the emergency room and get stitches and eventually wear a brace on my right hand for the next 2 months. And I only say that because that really was a stressful experience on top of having to go away to college for the first time, which is a very overwhelming experience in and of itself. So I had 2 of those things that were very stressful for me. And at the time, I've gotten a lot better with it, but my anxiety and stress management was not the best. So there I was having to introduce myself to people in a brand new campus environment, and having to do a new academic curriculum and not knowing where everything was and having to live in this weird dorm building. I'm going to, shake hands with people, but I can't because I got a cast on my hand, so I just have to wave awkwardly. And I am a very introverted person to begin with, so if you put me in a room full of people, I'm not going to usually be the one to initiate the conversation. It just made things that much more difficult and added to the stress. The reason I mention all this is because stress is what caused the next part of the story, which is that I ended up getting a lot more acne on my face. Now, I had moderate acne throughout high school. I think most people can relate to it, just, a little pimple here and there. And it's just something that you deal with. You wash your face, it makes it better. And then over time, it goes away. And it's just a part of growing up. But about 2 weeks into being away at college, it had gotten to a level that I never thought was even imaginable. Like, the best way I can describe it is these marbles that are deep under your skin. They're not like on the surface, they're just really deep, and they're inflamed, and just when you touch very gently the surface of your skin, it just burns, or it feels you feel physical pain from it, not just mental. But it was just horrible. And my main concern was that I thought people would think that I didn't take my hygiene seriously, or that I was dirty because I had, out of control acne on my face. But the contrary was true instead. I was, washing my face twice a day. I would make sure that my pillowcase was changed, or I wouldn't lean on my fist during class, or, I washed my hands frequently. I was doing all of the things that you're supposed to do to maintain the acne, but it just, whatever I did, nothing worked. And the moment that I realized how severe the acne had gotten was I was looking at pictures from move-in day when I had arrived, and I was shocked at how clear my skin was. And what I thought was terrible acne was actually pretty, my face was clear, okay? And that really gave me a lot of perspective in being like, wow, that is what I thought was, you know, a really terrible condition there, but it just ended up being that I was aspiring to go back in time to when my face looked like that. So over the next few weeks, it continued to get worse no matter what I did. And on top of having the cast on my hand and dealing with the whole new college experience and the acne getting worse, my stress was just out of control. And what I'll eventually get to is that the stress is what was causing it in the first place. And I didn't know that at the time. And I ended up going to see a professional dermatologist on my fall break. And what she said was, you know, there are a few different routes we can take. It's technically what you have is cystic acne, which is a severe form of it. And, you know, it's totally benign. It's not going to cause any health problems. It's just it is inflamed, and it's a problem. It's more impactful on your mental health. But she said the ways that we can tackle this are you can take antibiotics and this prescription ointment every day and see what that does, or you can take Accutane, which is, if you haven't heard of it, it's this very controversial medicine that shuts down your skin's ability to produce oil and moisture, which is the reason why it's can be a miracle cure for people. If you see the befores and afters, it really can solve the problem. And at that point, when you have a face full of acne like that, you don't see things clearly. You're desperate. You want to do whatever you can to get that stuff off of your face. But it's a big deal. I mean, you gotta have blood work done every few months to make sure that it doesn't mess up your kidneys. Like it's a big decision. But I just said, you know what, I'll start with the antibiotics and the topical cream, and I'll see what it does for me. And over the next 2 months, it actually cleared up my skin. Like, it was incredible. I didn't realize it, how much better that it had gotten, but because there was still some discoloration. It's called like hyperpigmentation. When it goes away, it leaves some spots, and then they gradually fade away, and then there might be scars depending on how severe the lesions were to begin with. It totally cleared it up so that it wasn't painful anymore to just wash your face. So that was a big deal for me, but I wasn't satisfied because it wasn't entirely clear. But then eventually I had to come off of the antibiotics because you can't stay on those forever, because eventually it starts killing the good bacteria in you, which you need on top of the bad bacteria that it's supposed to get rid of. So I came off of that, and the acne came roaring back in the spring and then over the summer as well. And I was almost convinced that I was going to go on this Accutane medication. And I had tried everything. I had tried Proactive and all of these harsh face washes that were just destroying my skin. Little did I know, I thought that they were helping. I was trying to figure out the causes, like what was causing this? Is it diet? Is it stress? Is it sweating too much when I work out? Is it, I was going down the list of potential reasons for what could be causing this. And I thought that I would do an experiment. I went on a cross-cultural to Italy at the end of the spring semester. And one of the great parts of Italian culture is the food, of course. And I was going to be there for 3 weeks. And I said, you know what, this is a once-in-a-lifetime trip. I'm going to eat everything that is put in front of me at the table. And they say you should cut out dairy when you're trying to get rid of acne and all that stuff, but that's Italian food. It's cheese. There's pasta, there are a lot of starches, and there's gelato and ice cream. And I said, it's just, I'll deal with the acne afterwards. If it gets bad, so what? And I was spending a lot of time in the sun as well, which they say you should stay out of the sun for acne. But by the end of the trip, my skin was probably 50% better than it was when I showed up. And I think that was because I wasn't stressed out. I was traveling the world. I was having an incredible time. I was making great friends. I was laughing a lot. And that made me realize that diet had nothing to do with it and that it was stress. So speaking of stress, that summer I ended up transferring colleges. So I had to do the whole process of going to a brand new campus and meeting new people all over again, which stressed me out. And by that fall, it had gotten out of control once again. It wasn't cystic acne again, like the marble analogy that I gave, that never came back, but just aesthetically or visually, it looked pretty horrible, and it was terrible for my confidence, my self-esteem, and even my first year of college. There were times where just like I would look forward to going to bed because people wouldn't see it and I wouldn't want to wake up. So people, like, it would be hard to get up in the morning and go to class because people would be, you know, looking at my face. And it's terrible, but that's how I thought. My mindset has changed since then, which is part of one of the lessons I want to give you in this video. After the second breakout, it was kind of like a roller coaster. It would get clear, and then it would start again, and then it would clear up, and then it would start again. And it correlated to the times that I was most stressed out. So the spring semester of my sophomore year was when COVID hit in March. And I had really, at that point, I was like, I really have to get my stress under control here. And of course, everything that's gone on in the past 2 years is like almost too much to mentally process, just with all of the world events, you know, the pandemic, protests, there's terrible, horrific war going on right now. It's just, it's really difficult. I think all of us are stressed in some way, shape, or form. What happened with the pandemic and what's still going on, but what happened initially when it was really dark and there was no light at the end of the tunnel whatsoever, it was, you know, scary, and I'm sure a lot of people got really, really stressed out about it, and myself included. But I learned to manage my stress, you know. I did things like making sure to get 8 hours of sleep every night, drinking plenty of water, getting daily exercise, getting sunlight every day, you know, spending time with family, or making sure that encouraging things filled up my social media feed, and just things like that are just good for managing your stress. And once I identified that this is what is causing the acne and the breakouts, the stress, I need to focus on the stress more than the typical things that people turn to, like what kind of face wash should you use? Should you like moisturize? And you could go down the list all day and try different treatments. But for me, it was stress. And I think, you know, I'm not going to give any medical advice in this video except for this. I think every situation depends on you. We're all individuals. We have different ways of responding to things. And there are a lot of companies out there who are going to take advantage of your urgency, your impatience, and your insecurities with your skin, and they're going to market you all these products as a one-size-fits-all solution, and I don't believe that that exists for acne. For you, it might be diet, or your pillowcase, or you're sweating and you're not showering after you work out, or it might be any number of things, but for me, it was stress. I knew it wasn't diet because I went on that cross-cultural trip, and it actually got better after I ate all of the dairy and starches. So it wasn't diet for me. And to be honest, the face washes were, all these harsh chemicals I was rubbing on my face were making it worse. As soon as I stopped using those and I just used a gentle cleanser, now I don't even wash my face with anything but water. I'm not kidding. I've got my stress under control, and I wash my face with water, and you know, I do basic things like make sure that my pillowcase is clean. But other than that, you know, my skin has never looked better. And I think it's because I figured out what was causing it, and I went all in on trying to fix that. and it ended up working. So I think it is very specific to you and your case and what is causing your acne, okay? So you should maybe go and see a dermatologist and talk about what the reason that you think your acne is occurring, okay? And don't just look at all of these companies like Proactive or whatever other brand you want to choose, and they're going to market you and say, you know, we have this miracle treatment that's going to clear it up. It's just not the case, in my opinion. Look, I beat the acne. Like, I have some scars here. They're kind of hard to see, but I have some indentations and some discoloration here and there, but they've been fading away over time. And, you know, I don't mind it because it shows that they are signs or a symbol of what I beat, what I overcame. And, you know, if I could have gone back and had the option to not experience it, there's part of me that's like, yeah, I probably wouldn't want to go through that again. But also, it made me such a stronger person, and it made me put things in perspective that, you know, and I say this all the time, people might get sick and tired of hearing it, but of all the medical problems you can have, acne is one of the lowest on the list. And take it from someone like me that has experienced some of the worst acne you can have on your face, okay? There are really much greater and significant things that could be happening to you. There are people who are permanently disabled, who are terminally ill, people who are on their deathbed right now who would do anything to have the life that you have right now with a face full of acne, okay? And acne is really, in order to deal with it, it's really more of it's mental. It's a mental challenge. And looking back on my experience with acne is I was so concerned about what other people thought about me. Whether it was, like I said, they didn't think that I was clean because I didn't, you know, want to take care of myself, or I was ugly or whatever. And, you know, who cares? Who cares what other people think? Like, who are we to decide what is beautiful, what's ugly? One of my favorite television series ever is The Twilight Zone, the original one with Rod Serling. And there's this one episode called The Eye of the Beholder, and I'm going to spoil it right now, but it fits in perfectly with what my message is here, is that there is a patient and she has bandages all over her face. She's in the hospital and the doctors are performing an operation on her to make her look normal. And throughout the entire episode, the doctors' faces are concealed through shadows and camera angles, and you can only hear, and you can't see what they look like, you can only hear their voices, and you can't see the patient's face. Up until the end, where they remove her bandages and she's actually beautiful to our society's standards, and then all the doctors turn into the light and they have these really disfigured faces. The episode, it's such a profound message. I mean, it's from the 60s, but it's probably 10 times more relevant today, because all we do is we compare ourselves to people online, these highlight reels of wow, their skin is just so incredible. Why isn't mine like that? Or their life is perfect. Why isn't mine like that? And, you know, society wants us to conform into this norm. That's what they talk about in that Twilight Zone episode. And the message behind that is, like, society might tell you what is beautiful, but at the end of the day, beauty is subjective. It's in the eye of the beholder. And having a face full of acne, you should never apologize for having acne on your face, okay? Because you really can't control it. I mean, you can to a certain extent, but like I was doing, I was trying everything I possibly could to have clear skin, and it wasn't working for me. And I had a lot of problems with my mindset during those days of having a face full of acne, where, like I said, I was caring about the opinions of others. But one thing that I didn't get wrong is I never apologized for having acne. and you shouldn't either. So if you should take away anything from this video, just to wrap things up here and conclude, is that I understand what you're going through. And there are a lot of people that understand it as well. And if you see pictures of me right now that I'm showing you, and you have like 2 pimples here and there and you're stressed out about that, just look at me and be like, wow, he overcame that, so maybe I can overcome the little problem that I have. And on top of that, think about things like all of the problems you can have in the world, medically or just, in general. Just, there are people fleeing their country right now because they're not sure if their home is going to get blown up. It's tragic, and there's, the world is a very, very dangerous place. And if you are able to get through each day safely, and you're healthy, and you have people around you that are caring for you, and the one rule that I always try to keep in mind is that there's always something to be thankful for. Okay? And acne is a big problem, don't get me wrong, as someone who's gone through it, but it is not the biggest problem that you can have. In fact, it is one of the less significant problems that you can have. Okay? So I would say develop that mindset, identify what you think is causing your acne, recognize that it's individual and it's specific to you and your situation. Don't let anyone try to convince you that their treatment is the miracle cure for you. Just because it works on someone else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And also realize that having acne does not make you ugly. I mean, obviously it really messed with me mentally. Like I said, there were times where like I cried. I looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, why is this happening to me? All the other people, they don't wash their face like nearly as much as I do. Why aren't they dealing with it? And it was horrible, more mentally than physically. You really just need to be in the frame of mind that just because I have acne on my face doesn't mean that people aren't going to like me or respect me or want to be friends with me. And I know it's so much easier said than done. And look, right now, I am much more confident talking to people when I go to work, or I go on, video production jobs, and I'm like meeting people. I'm much more confident having clear skin. Don't get me wrong. But there is light at the end of the tunnel, okay? And I know it can seem very, very dark, and it's easy to get discouraged when you look at yourself in the mirror, which you should try to avoid. Don't just look at yourself in the mirror. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. It will get better. Keep all these things in mind. But in the meantime, understand that there are much greater problems that you could be going through, and that you should count your blessings and know that eventually things will clear up for you. And I am proof of that. And I just really hope that this can be a message of encouragement and help a lot of people out who may be struggling with acne or any insecurity that they may be going through. So anyway, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for watching. Take care.